You're not dividing the working class by pointing out the objective fact that rural America sucks. You're just pointing out the fact that rural America sucks. When you criticize men, you're not dividing the working class. Are you like a class reductionist? Like, are you one of those people who thinks that like all cultural issues should be set to the side so you can exclusively talk about economic issues? An approach which works on literally no one? Oh God, speak of a group of people who have been trounced by recent history, right? The class reductionists, the people who are like, listen guys, okay, you need to set aside all that woke shit and just focus on economic appeal or fascism's gonna win. And then it turns out literally nobody votes based on anything even remotely approximating their economic best interest, except for the wealthy, of course. Why Trump voters don't regret their vote.
Over 100 days into Donald Trump's presidency, and no matter what you think of the man, one thing is undeniable. He came out of the gates fast.
President Trump wasting no time.
It's been a historic 100 days.
Defined by its breakneck pace.
To his critics, it can feel like a car crash that never ends.
Weren't economic reasons the driving force of why Gen Z voted for Trump? Yeah, like I said, economic issues didn't have any role in it. What the f was Trump doing for their economic outcomes? This is exactly what I mean. Reality has nothing to do with it. Broad working class appeal has essentially nothing to do with like what you're actually offering the working class. In reality, the best way to win over the working class is with like TikTok memes and AI-generated thumbnails where you talk about how the New York City subway migrant crisis situation is crazy, and then you talk about an NBC article from 5 months ago.
To his biggest supporters, the pace of change can feel like a thrill.
He signed so many bills. My gosh.
So here, let's just to reaffirm my biases, we're gonna watch some rural Americans, okay?
As the dust settles, with 100 days down, I wanted to know, how are Trump voters feeling about the direction that the country's headed?
Okay, wow, give me a minute.
And how do they feel about the man behind the wheel? So I came to a dirt track outside of Parkersburg, West Virginia to find out.
You just have to project strength to the rural class. They are Mongol raiders looking for a new Khan. I unironically think that's a better analysis than like, you just need to reach these people with working class policies. Like genuinely, yeah. They are stupid cattle that needs to be dragged by the chain, by the mandate of a strong ruler, okay? We're in a rough situation in this country, okay? Have you talked to a Republican recently about their, not like about the weather, but I mean about their politics? It's pretty bad out there. Also, like half of people can't read, I guess.
We're at Ohio Valley Speedway, out here trying to tear something up, you know.
Yeah, there's all ages out here. How old are you?
I'm 18.
18 years old. How do you get into this at 18?
Poor decisions.
Are you having fun at the dirt track?
Yeah, you want to say yeah?
Yeah. Yay. Just give us a sense of your personal politics. I assume a supporter of the president?
I'm a real supporter of the president.
2024 voted for Trump?
Yes.
I'm a supporter of this president, yes, but I'm supporter of whoever can make my life better and make, the country better. Democrat, Republican.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, I bet your political beliefs are really motivated by a kind of principled self-interest.
Doesn't matter.
First 100 days, how do we feel about it?
I want to know when the man sleeps.
Yeah.
Donald Trump, honest to goodness. When's he sleep?
In his first 100 days in office, Trump has broken a lot of records. Most executive orders signed. Most federal workers laid off. The highest tariffs in over 100 years.
Trump, again, vacations more than any president in American history, more so in the second term than the first.
It's enough to make anyone's head spin, even if you support him.
Hitting stuff hard is kind of scary.
Amphetamines will do that to you. No, he literally just doesn't work, like, at all. They bring him around to his meetings and dinners and stuff, and when he signs the executive orders, he doesn't even know what they are. Like, they literally hand him, and he's like, what is this one? They're like, oh, this is what this does. And then he signs them. Like, he's literally just being, like, paraded around. He probably gets better sleep than we do.
But it needs to be done. When's it going to be done? If you're going to drag your feet, or you're going to hit the nail on the head right there,
I don't know that.
How is this different than watching content featuring the hood and calling people they're trash for their political opinions when the reason's obvious why they're like that? Bring me videos of black people. I'll do it. for the sake of moral consistency. Bring me videos of black people. Now, the reason is because the hood doesn't produce the destruction of America, like in the form of fascist governance. Like, that's literally it. Listen, if the hood, can I say MFs, start like voting en masse Republican, then we'll have that conversation. But right now, areas like this, we know their disposition politically. If you want to argue, like, why don't you criticize the hood for like dispositions towards negative socioeconomic tendencies, right? With regard to like crime or outcome, I have. So I mean, like, you can, but if you want to do this thing where it's like, well, you can't blame them because socioeconomics is why they are the way they are, but that's the case for everything, right? Like, that's the case for literally everything. What I'm talking about is we need to be more openly contemptuous of social signifiers that are heavily aligned with negative outcomes, okay? I mean, if you want to get right down to it, you know, not every Trump supporter is racist, but that's not going to stop me from saying like, well, that's some racist shit, you know? You want to do this like, well, okay, but not every rural person's bad. We know, everyone knows that. Nobody's arguing otherwise. I just don't understand this sensitivity. Listen, I could sit up here, right here, I could be talking about, well, like, listen, okay, we need to talk about men because Gen Z men have lost their minds. And if there were people in chat going like, dude, not literally every Gen Z male is bad. Also, aren't you separating the proletariat? Because a lot of the Gen Z males are of the proletariat. And also, the messaging is bad. You're dividing people. And you would get mocked for that. I just don't understand the sensitivity along this axis in particular. We have spent so long coddling rural America. Most of rural America is dead or dying, highway off-ramp rest stop towns. But we have to pretend like it's the heartland. I'm not pretending, you know? Jesus. We coddle rural America more than we do men or white people. Even like Democratic politicians will talk about like, well, we have an issue with white people. We have an issue with men. No one's saying we have an issue with rural America. No one will touch that one. It's lighthearted. It's not that serious. Everyone's freaking out.
But I can say that there's a lot that I want to say good job for the first 100 days. I think we have to give him more time.
Giving some time to take care of everything that's messed up. That's why people seeing him as the enemy right now.
He's moving real fast like the cars at the track here. You feel like he's headed in the right direction, or is he turning right?
I don't know. I think he gets up on that wall and drags it a little bit here and there, but so far he ain't wrecked out.
Like a lot of people, I did vote. I felt like where he's at today and today's world was
also, wow, you're criticizing rural white people? Well, why don't you criticize black people in the hood? Where the f is your mind at, man? Look, you know I roll with it, okay? I'm just saying, like, what's the, like, this is what I mean about the defensiveness too. Like, oh, okay. Well, how about you criticize black people? That, like, what do I have to right now? Can it wait till later? Yeah, I tell you, that's the group that gets no criticism. Black people in the hood, you know, getting coddled.
Politics, we needed a change.
Yeah. Politicians have been in there for years, and it's not working. We need a complete revamp, and I know people don't like to see it. They don't like to hear it.
You know, it's time we stop sitting back and being the underdog here. We should be a top dog in a lot of things, and we've let it go. Yeah. So we need to bring it back, and I pray to God that's what he's doing.
West Virginia is known for its extractive industries like coal, but Parkersburg is a hub for manufacturing, or at least it used to be.
The plants were built all along the river from 50s and the 60s, and you know there's been a decline the last 20 years.
A lot of those have shut down now, so it's kind of taken away our population. We've gone down probably 10,000, 20,000 people.
And when they shut down, where'd they go? Where'd those jobs go?
They just sold out to overseas.
For years, Trump promised that he would bring manufacturing jobs back to America.
And he
lied. Back to the heyday when towns like Parkersburg were thriving. And so far, he's leaned hard on one policy tool in particular. Get into those tariffs, maybe. Does that ever affect you, and what do you think about that?
He needs to max it out on all of them.
Yeah.
Buy American.
I cannot overstate to you how much I don't care whether this guy doesn't like me for being mean to rural America.
You don't have to worry about them tariffs.
The tariffs scared me. When he cuts back on the tariffs, I want to pat him on the back and say, good job.
I would say probably 85% going well, the rest not, because my stocks are down a little bit, but you don't look at your stocks every day. It's long term. You just have to ride it out. That's what everybody else is doing.
It's about time someone wants to make it straight across the board. Yeah. We've been paying all these countries way too much for way too long.
I'd always see stuff made in America again. I mean, we have the people here that can do it. It just needs to be more American-made stuff.
There's a huge debate about whether any of these tariffs will actually work. Will they bring back manufacturing jobs?
Not much of a debate, to be honest with you.
Or will the chaos of Trump's approach discourage investment?
Imagine living in one of these shit-ass towns, and you look at like the ruins of the West Virginian coal extraction industry around you, and your best political project, the thing that you want to invest your time and energy into, is what if we made it back like the way it was? That's the limit of your imagination. What if we everyone's leaving, no one likes it, everyone's dying of fentanyl. What if we went back to how it was and we broke the country trying to do it?
The U.S. and create the conditions for a recession. We'll just have to wait and see. In the meantime, there are a whole lot of jobs that have been eliminated in the last 100 days, and that was by choice.
The Trump administration continues to hollow out the federal workforce.
The brand new Department of Government Efficiency.
But dude, what other messaging are they hearing? It's either go back to their glory days or keep rotting. We have to like give them some agency, man. Like seriously? These are the most gullible people in the world. Like, yeah, obviously everything's socioeconomics, but like, no, I'm sorry. There's the coddling. Would you do this with a Nazi? Because Nazis were also like this because of this, right? Like the average Nazi doesn't like wake up and go, well, logically, I could be a normal person or I could be a Nazi. I guess I'll be a Nazi. They're like subsumed with propaganda. I don't understand why we coddle like this.
You know, he's going in and cutting this and cutting that. You know, he's getting rid of some of the garbage that we don't need. Yeah. The way I look at it.
$8 million for making mice transgender.
Making rats transgender, stuff like that. Why?
When we have 150-year-old...
Again, like they're cattle. Like, genuinely. Like, they just hear a thing. No critical engagement, no thought. They listen to the world's most obvious con man, the most transparently dishonest person ever, and they just gobble it up and they don't think about it. They could Google anything. They have access to limitless information at their fingertips. Library, the internet, they could do any of it. In an instant, they could fact check anything. They don't believe in anything. Well, I mean, they believe what they're told. They don't believe in anything from like a value first perspective. You need to interview people like this so you guys can remember, because some of you people are still Twitter policy wonk brained. You're like, yeah, man, like Kamala Harris lost because like her appeal to the working class wasn't strong enough, which, I mean, I guess depending on your definition of appeal or whatever, you know, rhetoric maybe, but it's not policy, I'll tell you that much. We are so past that point in history.
Still drawing Social Security. So how many were truly there that were over that age? Who knows?
But it doesn't even necessarily mean that all these people are receiving checks.
Right. They're just listed on the files.
Right.
And it doesn't mean money's going out to them.
With all the cuts that Doge has made, it can be hard for anyone to keep track, to tell the difference between fact and fiction.
Most of the time, I don't know what to believe. What do you believe? This or that, this one or this one, or, you know, until I actually see something happening.
Yeah.
Then that's when you believe what's going on. So.
Yeah. It turns out, Doge made a pit stop in Parkersburg back in February when they laid off over 100 people at the Bureau of Fiscal Services.
Great.
One of the largest employers in town.
With President Trump and the DOJ closing down a lot, we've got a lot of people losing their job at Bureau of Public Debt, so that hurts.
Do you know any of the people personally that were laid off at the Bureau?
I do, yes, I do. I go to church with a lot of them. We've been praying for them.
Yeah, it's going to be a huge impact. I have a lot of friends that have worked there and friends that have gotten laid off.
Not only does it affect them, it affects us, because if they don't have a paycheck, then they can't come to us to afford to get their hair done. So yeah, it affects everything.
Yeah.
It's
a roller coaster of emotions. Was so excited to get the opportunity to work here. This is like a dream job for this area.
By the way, somebody earlier said, do you really think these people have access to a library? Look at the building back there. I'm just saying, I think, again, it's kind of like a noble savage thing or whatever, but there are areas of rural America that have had a shocking amount of wealth, historically or contemporarily, put into them. Just sometimes the way people talk, it's like, well, of course they couldn't have gotten the correct info on this. They don't have internet, you know? The only TV they have, it's like they have to like tune the antennas themselves. They have to point it in the direction of the local, you know, TV tower or whatever.
Yeah.
Lindsay worked in accounting at the Bureau. On February 20th, she received an email informing her that she'd been laid off.
And it's been chaos ever since.
About a month later, she and other colleagues who had been laid off were told that they could come back to work.
So I scheduled my appointment for 8:15 this morning. I was gonna come in, do my fingerprinting, get my badge, and at 6:10 a.m. they emailed us and canceled appointments.
Again,
yep.
This morning.
Yep. We're gonna have to come up with a plan and figure out how we're gonna get our bills paid.
There are towns in Illinois with less than 500 people that have small libraries. Yep, and the dipshits who live there would vote for a president who pledged to close every single one of them down. Even if they love that library, Trump could go up there and say, these tiny libraries, nobody uses them, they're a waste, homeless people, they attack them, it's not good, billions of dollars wasted, we're going to close them down. And even if they love that little library, they would vote for a person to shut it down, and they would defend it too.
The next month, until we hear something else about what's going to happen here.
How do you make sense of Elon Musk's role in our government? Does it sit well with you? Talk about that a bit.
I question it. What interest does he really have? I've heard he's getting paid buku bucks, but then I've also heard he's not getting paid anything. So, you know, fake news. What is the truth? I don't really know.
Do you like Elon Musk? 1 to 10, do you feel like he's in your corner?
I'd say 5. I think he is to a degree, but everybody has an ulterior motive. I hate to say that. So.
This is why Elon got dropped, by the way. He just did not have the popularity he needed to.
I give him 50-50. Yeah. Sometimes he is, sometimes he's not, I feel like. That's my opinion.
I want to believe that he's there because he truly has something that he is trying to accomplish for the United States.
Do you think they're just like that, or a period of propaganda made them like that? Why would you ever think that I'm suggesting that because you're born in a zip code that's rural, that means you're biologically predetermined to be a... It's propaganda. But like at the face of things, like there was a decision made in America that because we are largely a country of immigrants and immigrants tend to pool in cities, if you are going to win over voters based on their racism, you have to appeal predominantly to rural voters. And that has been the case for a long time. That has been the case before the party switch in the 1960s, you know? Southern Blue Dog Democrat type shit. The idea that if you are going to win on xenophobia, you will appeal to rural areas is true not just in America either. It's an almost universal thing. Guys, I'm sorry, okay? There's a reason that cities blew up after the Industrial Revolution. This is the way of the future. Rural is the way of the past. It just is. City living is more efficient. It is more, what's the way a 19th century eugenicist would put it? You know, city living is more conducive to the mind of a modern gentleman. Okay, there we go. And then I'd have like a little pencil drawing of a person with like a perfectly shaped brow. It's a civilized way of living. So it's too far gone then? No, I think that we need to do like some serious cultural reform shit. The Kowalski, the fact that listen, okay, if the best argument you have in defense of rural areas, the fact that you're breeding stock who get dissatisfied with your counties and move to ours, that's not a good defense for rural areas, okay? If your argument is that your poor breed more and then their children leave in disgust for jobs and opportunities in cities, you're not defending rural America, okay? Like that just makes you subservient to the cities even further. Okay, there's no reason to defend rural America. All right, not in this capacity at least. We need like a reconstruction effort. Basically, I don't really know how else you're going to get around this. It's like the culture of these areas it's so cooked. Should we forcibly bring rural areas into progressive mindsets by bringing city culture and social wellness to them? Yeah, I'm in favor of colonizing. Yeah, we should colonize rural America. There is some truth to that in the sense that like a lot of how we've designed rural and also suburban America is just economically unworkable. Like there are a lot of parts of America that just do not work with the modern economy. And that's not even the fault of the modern economy. They were poorly designed to begin with, you know? Areas that are dead and dying because they have just been constructed to be dead or to die. So that's an issue to begin with, right? Also, people are way the too spread out in too many areas. Unless you're literally working farms, I have no idea why we have areas zoned where you need to drive 20 minutes to get to your local village in order to buy groceries from like an up-priced local market by one person or whatever. Like, we don't have American villages. So part of the problem with rural America is the fact that there are like structural issues with it. And a lot of that goes back to homesteading, right? The fact that we were handing out like 40-acre parcels of land or whatever to the first group of Westerners who traveled over there and like planted their stake. But a lot of those people didn't actually set up farms or don't now. So it's like they just have houses that just have big lawns, like huge lawns, you know, stuff like that. Yeah, part of it's educational investment. Part of it's the fact that for some reason we allow conservative talk radio to exist, you know, got to fix that. Stuff like that, you know. I think that like rural America should probably look a lot more like the way that it does in Europe, rural areas where you have like villages of a few thousand people and you have like farmland stretching out from there. You know, but the model of like American rural expanse where everything is so like disconnected. And why would these people even believe in society? They don't really like participate in it. They're subsidized by it, but like I don't. You know what I mean? Can you specify what you mean by cultural reforms? Everyone has a shock collar that zaps you if you misgender. College students visiting your town.
States. But then I see what he's doing right down here at the Bureau of Public Debt, and I get concerned.
So you want to gather a large group of people, take their land, force them to move to your ideal kind of location? Yes. Also, like, I do think that if you built these villages, I think people would move to them anyway, because as we've discussed previously, rural areas suck. These areas are rotting and dying. I think a lot of people would probably take the opportunity to live in a more like developed area. Yeah, not like cities necessarily, but like yeah, like a little village. When is Vosh gonna grow beans in his house since he wants fields gone? I love the delusional belief that like rural America is keeping the farms working when they're not. I don't know where. Like, do you think that like the 60 or 70 million Americans who live in rural America are all farmers? Do you think that? Have you like driven through these areas? Where does our food come from? It just like pops out of the ground or something type shit. German village from above. I don't care about Street View. Yeah, stuff like this is mostly what I'm thinking of. I think this is a much more sustainable, and I don't mean that in a gay environmental way. I mean this in like a human habitability kind of way. A much more sustainable way to live in a rural area. Basically, you have like a dense concentration residences, and then you have the farmland all around it, rather than having this like spattering of houses and random plots of farmland or whatever. This is much more economically efficient. It encourages community. You can have like nice, pleasant, walkable areas. You can have like a city center. You can actually do stuff without needing to drive for 20 or 30 minutes. I think that most people would like this. And I think if they don't, they're wrong. And frankly, I don't care. We'll force it on them anyway. I don't care. You anchors. Wait, that's not how American rural areas are structured? Jesus Christ. No, not even close. Show them the Strode. I don't think people could even fathom, like, Western Idaho as a concept. Oh, there's a nice house or two. Oh, here we go. Here's Plumber. Mind you, the difference between shit like this and shit like this is that these are actually like well-developed communities that people actually live in. They're vibrant. I've driven through a million identical towns that are all like this. They are wastelands. Absolute wastelands. You might notice that for some reason, even though we're in rural America, a lot of these properties have weird like vacant lots around them. Like it's just random car space, parking. Like there's no way to walk between any of these areas. See, like you couldn't. I don't even know if they have sidewalks. They might. I don't really know. Yeah, it looks like a new kid. It looks bombed out. This is how, I don't know, 80 million Americans live. It's not a joke. That's not a joke. You all know that's not a joke, right? Backwoods savages, and we're trying to save you, man. But rather than allow yourselves to be saved, you've spent decades constructing an insane propagandistic narrative that this is real America. No, it's the not. By the way, out here west, huge amount of this farmland not used for jack shit, by the way. You see all these farm plots? You can see them. Just because people maintain these plots does not mean this farmland is being used for shit. No feeling more depressed than pulling into a small town right off the interstate and it's just massive roads, gas stations, and crumbling houses. This is what rural Americans want to save. If you ask the average rural American what they would do to make America great again, they would say, could President Trump sign an executive order to force my children to move back in with me? I'm not joking. Oh, there's Flat Creek. There's a town. Here's an actual town. Maybe. Here we go. This is what occupied rural farmland looks like in America. The houses are separated by enormous stretches of road. No connection. It might be 10, 15, 20 minutes before you get to the place you need to go. Like you want to go to the grocery store or something. You can't walk anywhere. You burn a huge amount of your meager paycheck on gasoline. See, it's stuff like this, see? A lot of this is just the consequence of homesteading, really. The isolation. I don't really think that's true. I genuinely don't. I really do think the vast majority of people who live in areas like this don't like it. And I think that they cope desperately. But the thing you gotta understand is that I want them to have better lives. They're the ones voting to have me killed, okay? I'm not voting for people who are promising unlimited genocide in the rural world. When I'm asked, what do I want for rural America? I say, wouldn't it be nice if we had a giant infrastructure project to revitalize rural America and build out villages that are actually like sustainable and people can live there and people would like living there? And when rural people are asked what they want for me, they say, oh, Seattle, wasn't that city burnt down by blacks? I don't know, I guess maybe like a helicopter evac from the ongoing war zone that he must live in. I'm sorry, this is not an equal exchange of antagonism. Okay, let's finish the video.
Any sense of why they're doing this?
I think they have made tax cuts, so they've lost money, and that money has to come from somewhere. So they're just trying to make up the money from anywhere they can get it. Right now, Republicans are gearing up for a fight over one of their biggest legislative priorities.
They passed it.
Making Trump's tax cuts from 2017, which mostly benefit the richest Americans, permanent. If they succeed, those cuts are estimated to add more than $5 trillion to the debt over the next decade. And to pay for that, they're considering
the House pass.
A few options.
President Trump has endorsed a House budget plan that would make sweeping cuts to Medicaid.
Most of the federal spending is entitlements. That's like the big one to eliminate.
Do you want them to do that? Do you not want them to do that?
Absolutely not. I paid into it all these years. I need to get something out of it.
Yeah.
I did auto body work for all my life. I'm retired now. I get Social Security, which is not enough to live on.
If you were talking directly to Trump and Musk, what do you want them to do on Social Security and Medicare? Keep it, cut it, increase it? What do we think?
Well, of course, I'm on Social Security, so I'm all for increasing it.
I hope they don't do it.
Ooh.
Anything to Social Security and Medicare, Medicaid, and all that.
Medicaid in West Virginia is huge, and it's not just people, it's kids. If you're going to take away the jobs that provide them with health care, that's not Medicaid. But then also take away the Medicaid, there's something else for them.
They're so self-centered. Yeah, that's another thing you notice from rural people, by the way. They're always talking about themselves. Genuinely, I mean that. They very rarely talk about, like, what policies they want for America broadly or what they'd like to see, like, the direction the country take. They're almost always talking about how it relates to them. Because they don't believe in society. It's the toxic American individualism. You live out in shithole nowhere. You have nothing, there's nothing out there, no culture, nothing, just a wasteland. And you're like, well, I must be like the only guy, basically. You don't have any concept of like legacy or sort of like cultural engagement or like believing in a system that extends beyond you as a person.
For them. I'm not for the tax breaks for the rich. I think they already have a lot of money. They do need to, pay the taxes and give it back a little to the middle class, because I think that
this is not American. This is rural. All rural people think like this. That is true. And hey, listen, I've been consistent. What have I said before about farmers in France? Okay, that is true. I do think that there is a universality to the points I've made about like the rural areas. It's not just America. I do think America is particularly bad about it in a lot of ways, but no, I do think that it's universal to an extent.
Middle class is the one that's really getting hammered right here.
How's the American dream doing, do you think?
Not well at all.
I'm diabetic.
Yeah.
and I've been diabetic for 30 some years. There's no sense in our medicine costing what it does. That is insurance greed.
Well,
all of those big corporations, those insurance companies, whether it's health insurance, life insurance, car insurance, they are buying the politicians and they're getting what they want that way. So they're making billions of dollars, but yet the average median income, they're barely making it.
I'm telling you, man, Reconstruction, okay? Yeah, I'm telling you.
The message for like Donald Trump or Elon Musk if they were watching.
Don't forget the working people. We're building the country. We're making the materials. We're working in those factories. You know, we're working in the government. You've got to make sure that you take care of us.
Here's the way I see it. Most of the Trump supporters I talk to see the chaos of Trump's first 100 days as necessary.
We need forced busing. We need to force rural people to be bused into New York City to work for a while. I'm half joking.
Even cathartic. They wanted someone from the outside who could move fast and break things because to their mind, those institutions were already completely broken. But that doesn't mean they're on board with everything Trump has done. The folks we talked to were also worried about the impacts of deep cuts to the federal workforce. They're worried about preserving Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. And they're waiting
again, they say they're worried about those things, but you have to take people at their behavior rather than their word, right? Like, clearly they have another set of priorities. See, okay, I really, really like the channel More Perfect Union, so understand these criticisms are coming from a place of love. I really wish these interviews would ask more questions about minorities. You need to be meaner to these people because, for one, they are voting to kill us. That's not an exaggeration. But we need to be clear. These are not like noble proletarians yearning for the outreach, okay? They just need to hear the right message or something. These are, for the most part, stupid, biased, ignorant, racist people who are, in large part, and I bet you dollars to donuts this is true because it's true in almost every case, right? Voting because they're terrified of illegals. Okay, like we don't need to go so far. It's not about humanizing them. Humanize them all you want. They're humans, right? But you don't need to like paint them as like noble savages or whatever. Like, these people claim they care about the little guy. They care about their Social Security. They care about their health care. Then who did they vote for? Okay, then why did they vote for him? Did they vote for him because they thought Trump would be the pro-Social Security guy? Probably not. They probably thought he was going to save the country from crime, blacks, and Hispanics. Okay? Like, we need to know that. Because if we aren't being honest about why they voted for who they voted for, then we lead ourselves into these bad narratives where we convince ourselves that it's, oh, if only they had heard one Bernie Sanders speech. I guarantee you they have. It didn't change anything.
To see how this whole global trade war thing will play out and whether it'll actually benefit them.
What do they say? Prepare for the worst and hope for the best? Yeah. That's pretty much what you have to do.
You got to take care of the people, take care of you. Well, we're taking care of the governments, and they need to take care of us when we get old.
I think that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Being able to put food on the table, drive your car, pay your bills.
Yep.
And
totally self-interested again, like no broader, like again, cattle, like no greater. And she seems like the nicest of the ones who are being interviewed. But like, again, it's all just about that, like no aspirations to a greater project or anything like that. And again, nothing here is innate. Okay. It's not their brain matter or whatever. Any one of these people, they could have been a PhD, you know, whatever. I don't know. It's maybe they are. I don't know. It's not about like innate intelligence. It's just like Jesus, you know, we have to smell the roses a bit. So many urbanites romanticize rural areas, but genuinely, as someone who grew up and still lives in rural Alabama, they are some of the most backwards, self-serving, bitter old pieces of shit in the world. Some of the worst people I've ever met out there. Yeah. Obviously, not all of them are like this, but it's crazy how many are. Yeah, I don't know why. Do you think it's the cottagecore thing? Like, there's a bunch of lefties who, like, idealize, once I'm done getting my bag in this tech job, you and I are going to go get, like, we're going to live in, like, a rural area or whatever. So they're deluding themselves into thinking that they're going to be, like, embracing this, like, tradition of proletarian connection with the land, and they don't want to believe that actually not living within 400 feet of a Starbucks turns you into Hitler, which it does.
And live your life with your family.
What do you want to see improved? What's missing in all of this?
A little more back to the working people. Just like racing. The fans that are in the
Christ.
stands are the ones that make it. And that's exactly what the working people are. They're the fans in the stands.
Hi. Thanks for watching.
I really like More Perfect Union. I just want us to be more honest about why these people are the way they are. Because it is not because they're looking out for the little guy. I actually genuinely think that the project to like build a rural urban united front has failed utterly, and we need to be way the more classist against rural people, because rural America sucks and the people there suck, and I don't know why I should have to pretend otherwise when Republicans have made hating big cities their entire policy platform. Why do Republicans get to non-stop attack all of the epicenters of American ingenuity, culture, industry? Meanwhile, like, everyone gets really dainty with it whenever you're like, hey, you know these like poor, deprived, undernourished shit havens of incest, domestic abuse, and racism? I actually don't like those. And then everyone pearl clutches. They're misinformed and economically disadvantaged and ignored. Yeah, well, there are lots of like poor Republicans, but that doesn't mean I have to be nice to them. Is it because it's considered punching down? As long as the US Senate exists and the Electoral College exists, it's actually punching up. If you're a voter in New York City, your vote objectively counts less for the federal government than a voter in rural Wyoming, okay? Like by a significant margin between the Senate and the Electoral College. So I'm just saying, rural Ohio's finished and it's AI generated thumbnails of painkiller addicts. Wouldn't be a bad channel. Wouldn't be bad. Rural areas do suck, however, there are ways of appealing to them that haven't been approached yet at all. Like, most rednecks can be made to agree with environmentalist positions if you don't call it that. I don't care. Maybe they shouldn't have voted for Trump. Sorry, like, we've been trying this one for decades. Like, dude, trust me, okay? The noble, spirited proletariat will respond to your arguments. You just have to phrase it the right way. Like, no, they don't. They clearly don't, you know? It's like all those people who are like, they say they regret their vote for Trump, but then it's like, well, if you went back in time, would you vote for Kamala? And they say no. It's like, well, okay, then you don't regret your vote for Trump, actually. That's not the same thing. Nobody's actually tried that except Bernie. Come on now. I disagree. Bill Clinton tried with his down-home folksy Arkansas bullshit, and it worked. I mean, he won. It hasn't like changed the character. Listen, if you want rural people to get more respect, they should act more respectfully. I'm sorry. I'm doing respectability politics in their direction. All right? Maybe they should do literally anything good. Also, it's not like Trump doesn't despise rural and poor people. It's not like he's even remotely subtle with it either. Carter was the last Dem president that really played to rural folks with his peanut farm. I just think it's a waste of time. Like, a smaller and smaller portion of the population is rural. And also, they're stupid and they suck. I'm sorry. You can't lie. The demographics make it pretty clear, man. You look at the polling data, it's just a shitty, it's like a neglected vestigial part of the national conversation, you know? We need more AI slop channels that are like, yeah, what was the idea previously? Rural Idaho is finished. And it's the AI generated photo of like a bunch of people shooting up on the like the one main street of the, you know, of the shitty little town. You know, something like that, you know? They're stupid from socioeconomic causes. They don't have to be stupid. Yeah, no shit. Should rural people accept that their towns have been destroyed and that the Democrats aren't changing anything there and they should shut up and vote Dems and accept it? This is a Dem failure. How is it a Dem failure, motherfucker? Who do you think runs those towns and counties and states? I'm sorry, do you think Democrats are the ones who are disproportionately responsible for the deprivation of these areas? These people vote Republican, and they always will. This is the wall the GOP can't admit mistakes. I just think that people have forgotten how important it is to have, like, an out group. Did the GOP lose votes in the cities just because Republicans nonstop attack people in the cities? No, they gained votes everywhere, even though a mainstream Republican talking point now is that all cities suck and are falling apart and are crime-ridden. I'm telling you, if you attack rural America and do it right, the consequence will not be rural Americans hate you. The consequence will be that rural Americans will be ashamed of their origins, as they should be, and they will either migrate to cities, or they will be pick-me's for rural America, and they will talk about how bad it is and how much the Republicans have ruined it. Basically, what I'm saying is you need to be more divisive, more hateful, more contemptuous. I mean, if anything, like the meaningful difference here is that Republicans attack cities, even though cities are cool. Rural areas suck. You gotta, it's insane. We're losing the negativity battle when their side is the one more worthy of derision. Absolutely wild. That's the way it used to be too. Lots of alt music is about hating the shit-ass town you're born in. No kidding. Yeah, didn't it used to be a lot more like culturally acceptable to talk down on your shit-ass bumpkin conservative town? When did everyone like stick a rod up their ass and start talking as though you're like betraying Marx by pointing out the obvious fact that these areas suck? I mean, like, at what point? I feel like at some point it became like a taboo subject. I think that we've bought into Republican respectability politics. They shit talk every city in America nonstop, but they taught us to pearl clutch when people shit talk rural America. I'm not buying into it. I'm not falling for the propaganda. Rural Texas is literally dying while those areas keep voting for Republicans. I mean, past a point, I feel like they just deserve it, man. Yeah, everyone's leaving the small towns to go to the big cities. Why wouldn't they? Except Dallas? Yeah, except for downtown Dallas, it seems. But even the suburbs of Dallas and the Fort Worth area, they're picking up people. Worse still, big cities in Texas don't realize they need to urbanize like at all. At least they're building houses. God, that's bleak, though. Everyone in rural places hates city folk, but deep down it's just envy and projection. Meanwhile, people in cities don't spend any time at all thinking about rural people. That is generally true. Yeah, that is true. Rural Americans have a gigantic, constant chip on their shoulder about this, like, perceived war between real America, quote unquote, them, an area that produces nothing, no people, no culture, no industry, versus the fake, you know, effete city liberal coastal elites, aka the majority of the population actually produces things, changing, innovating what people think of when they think of America. This is so classist. Don't buy into it. The worst people in rural areas are bumpkin car dealership owners, okay? There are millions of poor people in cities. This is why the right wins. I disagree. I think you're buying into Republican propaganda. It's actually a very well-written article from the Texas Tribune. They make food, though? No, farmers and make food, and so do their farmhands. Rural Americans as a whole they're not all farmers. If rural America makes food, non-rural America makes everything. Kowalski, if you seriously think that, like, person per person cities are more subsidized than rural areas, I don't know what to tell you. Also, fun, unsurprising fact, used car dealerships are a major source of Republican donations. Yeah, that's not surprising to me. Rich rural people are like the ultimate Hitlerites. Oh, for sure, for sure. You shouldn't despise a group due to their actions when the reason is socioeconomic. You know that the reason why everything is socioeconomic, right? You could make that argument for the Wehrmacht. I just don't understand why the same tired arguments come out. It's, well, they're like that because of, like, their education. Yes, so were the Nazis. I don't know what you're getting at. Not to say that all rural Americans are identical morally to Nazis. You know, I would never say that about all of them. I really just think people undervalue the, I don't know, antagonism as a social force, okay? Again, non-stop Republican hatred directed towards cities, very bigoted hatred, by the way, did not lose Republicans votes in cities. Cities are America. I don't care what rural people say. They produce the culture. By they, I mean the cities, of course. Obviously, that's where the people are and the money. So as a consequence of that, you know, they're attacking real America. What does it lose them? Nothing. Nothing at all. Even city-dwelling Republicans are like, yeah, this city sucks. They make it their culture or whatever. So why do we lose rural voters then if you direct the antagonism back at all? Why do we have to, you know, like we're walking through a minefield? You know, why are they the snowflakes? I thought we were the snowflakes. I signed up to be the snowflake, not them. This is ridiculous. It's just that such a broad generalization is the same facility racists make towards urban people. Yeah, well, that's the comparison that I'm making. You know, I haven't seen any good, like, we interviewed some regretful Trump voters videos in a while. It's the same thing with Latinos voting for Trump. Yeah, I wonder how people who are upset about this, like, square that circle, right? How is it that Republicans, they're not only racist against Hispanic people, literally the main push for this administration was a wave of hatred and fear directed against Hispanic people. And then Trump gained massively with Hispanic people. I think people just don't understand how hatred works, to be honest. When you direct hatred against a group of people, or, you know, it doesn't have to be like bigoted hatred, right? Like When I make negative comments about rural people or like rural areas, I'm talking about a wide range of things. But when, say, for example, Republicans talk about migrants, they're talking about non-white people. So sometimes it's coded bias. Sometimes you're talking about a broader range of things. But when you're directing antagonism towards a group, you know, I think it's pretty normal for members of that group to go, well, I'm not like that. In fact, I share a lot of these criticisms, you know? Having pride in everything. Okay? These places suck. And I think a lot of rural people probably share that feeling to an extent, you know? Like if you're even remotely left-leaning and you live in a rural part of America, you probably hate where you live, okay? That's a very common sentiment. That's not new. It's been like that for a while. That's not a new like dynamic, the remotely progressive person in a rural area. And if you kind of speak in line with that, I feel like you'll have a chorus of people speaking with you, or you'll open up the door for people to kind of do the pick-me shit, to differentiate themselves. I feel like the coddling has gotten us literally nothing. Like we've been up to it for like 20 years. You know that, right? This like post George W. Bush's victory, you know, this fake Southern, you know, buy a ranch down in Texas bullshit, this insistent, well, we need to reach out to both halves of America shit. It's not worked. Something noble, savage view of rural people. Yeah, and it's all socioeconomic, but I feel like we just need to acknowledge the fact that the cultural and socioeconomic forces that underlie rural life just tend to pull people in bad directions, you know? That sounds like the mood some years before the Civil War. Yeah, well, the country's falling apart, so, you know. Imagine if rural voters became aware of class warfare and voted in their best interest, instantly better. Yeah, but the thing is, they literally never will, because nobody votes along economic interest. People vote along inertia. They vote along, like, cultural inertia, right? Nobody goes out there and is like, I will look at the policies of these candidates and vote for the person who will make my life better. Nobody votes like that. In this day and age, are you kidding me? Did you see the YouTube videos we just looked at from that Jordan Cash guy or whatever the name was, Cash Jordan? It's sports team shit. It's culture. It's cultural inertia. It's like you know, culture war bullshit. It has nothing to do with like actual policy, basically. So it's just not happening. Does anyone else think it's weird how Vosh nails having burning appeals to like, we're working class people, but then he can't take any notes from that strategy in terms of advocacy? I don't know what that means. Were there typos there? It frustrates me when I see a message that I feel like I could springboard off of, but I don't know what the you're saying because there's like one or two key typos. Rural areas aren't 90 to 100% Republican. They're more like 60 to 65. Okay. You talk about how rural areas are dog shit and full of racists and backwater hicks or whatever, and then the 40 to 35% of people who aren't in that category or whatever will be like, yeah, those guys. Like, if you're a progressive rural American and you see anti-rural messaging and your response to that is like, no, we're actually the beautiful, earnest heartland of America. You can't say that. What are you doing? Like, isn't that exactly the same as other countries? Like people from other countries being like, damn, America's a shithole. Why the f did they vote for Trump? And you being like, no, not every American voted for Trump. Don't judge all of us. Like, what are you doing? Come on. No one cares. No one gives a shit, okay? You know what we're talking about. Nobody's going to build like the bedrock of populist messaging off of, I hate 60% of rural America. Oh, I'm angry at 51% of America for voting for Trump. Like, come on, don't, like, if you take that shit personally, you're just like reaffirming the sensitivity that got the bad electoral outcomes to begin with, you know? Oh, okay, you gave it another try. Does anyone think it's weird how Vosh will nail Bernie Sanders appealing to working class rural voters, but seems incapable of applying that same strategy to his own advocacy? Well, actually, okay, you know what? I'm willing to engage with that fairly. A couple of points. First of all, we never got a real test of Bernie Sanders support, but I guarantee you that rural America would not have been swarming to support him, because most people vote on cultural issues. But I think that's a tangential response to your point. I think that was a glancing attack. Now I will attack you directly, okay? Now it's over for you. Write your will while I construct this. I have, in recent years, criticized Bernie Sanders for not being mean enough. And I think it's true. I think that what a lot of people who support Bernie Sanders need to learn is that his policies are excellent. His broad messaging is excellent. But you cannot win in this environment without directing overwhelming contempt against the people who are ruining this country. Because at the end of the day, people vote based on American appeal, or not American appeal, sorry. I mean, maybe American appeal, based on emotional appeal. I think that you need to harness that vitriol. You know, you need to have like an overwhelming cultural mandate. Can you imagine how Bernie Sanders would do in a debate against Donald Trump? See, debates between Democrats are mostly policy focused. How do you think he would have done against Donald Trump? Right? I think he might have gotten trashed. Okay, fine. I don't think so. Because I think Bernie Sanders would have talked the same way he does at his rallies. He would have said things that are correct. And then Donald Trump would have dog-walked him with 78 lies and emotional narratives that he wouldn't have a response to. And there's no way Bernie Sanders could respond to those lies without changing his tone. And I don't think he can change his tone because I think he's genuinely a very nice and level-headed guy. I don't think he can be angry enough. I remember 2016. I remember Donald Trump versus Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton was far smarter than Trump and had better policies and retorted well to what he said, and then she lost. And I think that Bernie is quite a bit less antagonistic than Hillary Clinton. You know, it's about that emotional narrative. I just don't buy into the idea that you just need the right, you need the correct broad working class appeal. Now, Bernie holds his own in debates, not against Donald Trump. You've never seen him debate Donald Trump. What about Bernie would have won? I think that if Bernie went up against Donald Trump in 2016, he would have won. I think that if Bernie went up against Trump in 2020, it's a wash. And I think that if Bernie went up against Donald Trump in 2024, he would have gotten dog-walked. And I don't mean that because of Bernie's age changing. I mean that because Trump became more hateful and more detached from reality. And I think that made him stronger. Trump got more votes with each, you know, he grew in power between elections, you know? I'm only speculating. Yeah, Trump's lies became bolder. Yeah, how do you think Bernie Sanders would have dealt with they're eating the cats and the dogs? Like, seriously. I know that in your head, you're imagining he would have this, like, level-headed response. You'd like, you know, Donald Trump wants to distract you with these ridiculous stories. He wants to tell you lies. He wants to make you fearful. But what you need to be fearful of is your health insurance premiums. Something like that, right? And look, we would have loved it. Okay? I don't know how well that would have landed, genuinely, against like an overwhelming tide of misinformation and hatred and vitriol and like middling messaging from Democrats. Look, I'm not saying his policies or he is bad. I'm saying he needs to be like if you could take him and you could beef that up with hatred against evil people, I think you would have more. And I don't know, doesn't it say a little bit that like right now Bernie Sanders is substantially less popular and less politically influential than he was back in 2016 when the primary opponents that he had to contend with were other Democrats? I've said this before, but like the matchup, it changes depending on who you're up against. This is not an environment. Nobody's even talking about healthcare anymore. Right? The healthcare conversation in 2016 was Medicare for all, single payer, or continue the ACA. And right now, the healthcare conversation is $800 billion lost from Medicaid. That's where the combo is. Right now, the conversation is, do you even get healthcare? So basically, Sanders is too good for this world. I think that Sanders is a very good person, and I obviously like him very much. And I will always like him unless he does something crazy. I mean, yeah, I'm clearly not anti-Sanders at all. I just think that, like, we have to wake up and smell the roses a bit. When I see people who are like, well, the way we win is with a broad working class appeal, I think you are, like, a decade out of date with your messaging. That is so obviously not what's happening right now. Like, you're like talking to the SPD in 1932. You're like, listen, okay? You just need to it's just welfare reform, okay? You just need to, okay, listen, all right? You need to refinance the Treaty of Versailles debts, okay? That's what'll win us. You know, we just need we need to make people's lives better. Broad working class appeal, you know? The working class voted for fascism, man. Remember, more educated, wealthier voters, for the first time in decades, voted for Kamala Harris. Lower education, lower income voters voted for Donald Trump. Discord crashing out, thinking you unironically hate all rural people, Lamau. First of all, it's the Discord. Second of all, they're outrage merchants. People like getting upset. It's all they have to do in their lives. Third of all, the vast majority of people who get upset by my statements along those lines are not rural. They're like, I don't know, Bernie dead-enders who think that we're one good working class messaging, you know, stint away from a Bernie Sanders presidency or something. They think that you're compromising on like left unity, but they're not even rural. You can tell when somebody's actually in rural America, because when you shit talk rural America, they're like, yes, sir. If we direct our hatred towards rural people instead of the capital class, we're shooting ourselves in the foot. What are you inventing in your head? What are you talking about? I'm just talking about like pointing out the fact that rural America sucks. Why do you, what, but with your proposal that we abandon all of our anti-bourgeoisie messaging and instead direct it principally against the rural America, what are you talking about? Come on, you're being crazy. Okay? Yeah, this ain't a DSA meeting, okay? Calm down. What is your proposal then? Make fun of rural America? What do you mean? I've been doing that for like ages. What's my proposal? DSA meeting, ass mother. Remember, snap, don't clap, point of privilege, point of personal privilege. I grew up in Los Angeles. That's wild to me that people can't understand maybe vehement antagonism is a useful tool in an era where fascism is rising. Do you think there's an overlap between the people who think that's bad and the people who are okay with making broad derogatory statements about white people or men? Even though on average, a rural person is more likely to be a backwards racist piece of shit than a white person or a man is?